You are welcome to Literature Hub 247, where the art and science of literature are discussed. I am Folahan Oyelekon, and this video is about a non-African play. A non-African play titled An Inspector Calls, written by J.B. Priestley. An Inspector Calls is in the WAEC 2026 to 2030 syllabus. Earlier on this platform, I've done the review of the old text, which includes the plot summary, the act-by-act analysis, the character analysis, the themes. I've also discussed the dramatic techniques. So this particular video is about who is the protagonist of An Inspector Calls. If you can remember, if you have read the text, we have some other major characters like Arthur Billing, we have Inspector Gould, we also have Eva Smith. Now, why is Eva Smith the protagonist of the text? You know, Eva Smith is not living. As far as that text is concerned, from the beginning to the end, we only hear about her from the narrative of the Billings when they are being interrogated by Inspector Gould. That is the narrative from Arthur Billing, Cyril Billing, Sheila Billing, Eric Billing, as well as Sheila fiancé, Gerald Croft. Now let's go into the classroom and see if we are justified by saying that Eva Smith is the protagonist of An Inspector Calls. Eva Smith, the protagonist of An Inspector Calls. Why? Now let's first look at the meaning of a protagonist in literature. In literature, a protagonist is the main character, often the hero or central figure, around whom the story revolves. The protagonist is typically the character with whom the reader identifies and empathizes, and whose journey and experiences drive the plot forward. By that definition, let's look at the roles, the narrative we hear about Eva Smith in An Inspector Calls. You can see that Eva Smith is the protagonist. Let's move further. Eva Smith is considered the protagonist of An Inspector Calls by J.B. Priestley, even though she never appears on stage. Her presence is felt throughout the play, and her story drives the plot, themes, and moral message. Here is a detailed explanation of what makes Eva Smith the protagonist. 1. The central figure of the plot. She is the central figure of the plot. The entire play revolves around Eva Smith. The inspector's investigation focuses on uncovering how each character contributed to her downfall. Each act reflects a different stage of her life and suffering, making her the thread that connects all the characters and events. You know, he is at the center of the events in the play. He is connected to all the characters. 2. She drives the conflict. The central conflict in the play is Mura, who is responsible for the death of Eva Smith. This question forces the Billings and Gerald is the Sheila fiancé, to examine themselves, exposing their flaws, secrets, and lack of social responsibility. Another thing is that without Eva Smith, there will be no investigation, no inspector, and no moral crisis. That is, without her in the narrative, there wouldn't be any investigation. No Inspector Gould will be introduced, and no moral crisis. 3. She represents the moral conscience of the play. That is, the author makes use of her as the moral conscience of the play. Eva Smith symbolizes the working class, the voiceless, and the victims of inequality. Through her, Priestley communicates his socialist message that we must all care for one another. That is, we must be there for our neighbor. Her suffering is the consequence of the other's actions, making her the moral center of the narrative. 4. She undergoes the most significant journey. Though she never speaks, the audience learns of her emotional and physical journey from hope, a hard-working factory girl, to despair, a homeless, unemployed woman who eventually dies by suicide. This journey evokes sympathy and reflects the tragedy of societal neglect. 5. She transforms the other characters. Her story forces transformation in some characters, particularly Sheila and Eric, who express regret and learn from their actions. They regret their action. She is the catalyst for change and reflection, which is a key role of any protagonist. 6. The Inspector has her voice. Inspector Good doesn't speak much about himself. He serves as a spokesperson for Eva Smith's experience, giving her story structure, weight, and urgency. His final speech, millions and millions Eva Smith and John Smith, quote unquote, confirms her symbolic role as the voice of the oppressed, that is the voice of Inspector Gold. Now, this is the summary of all the points I've made. Just the summary to capture what I've said earlier. Summary: why Eva Smith is the protagonist. We are going to look at the protagonist traits and how Eva Smith fits in to the traits. A protagonist serves as the central to the plot, as the central figure to the plot. Now let's look at how Eva Smith fits into being the central figure in the play. The entire story revolves around her life and death, that is from the beginning to the end. A protagonist drives the conflict. Now let's look at how she fits in there. Her suicide prompts the moral investigation. Yes. The next one is undergoes her journey. She moves from hope to despair through off stage. Eva Smith moves from hope to despair, though off stage. So she's not seen, but we hear much about her. Symbolic stroke moral center. Eva Smith represents the working class and Priestley's message. G.B. Priestley is able to pass his message through Eva Smith to the reader. Causes transformation in others. Inspires guilt, growth, and awareness in Sheila and Eric. Represent the playwright's message. That is it. Eva Smith is a tool for social critique and empathy. The author makes use of her to pass across his messages to the people. In conclusion, Eva Smith is the unseen protagonist because she is the moral, emotional, and structural heart of an Inspector Cause. Priestley uses her story to challenge the audience, critique society, and promote responsibility and compassion. Please, if you are new on this platform, try and click on the subscribe button and the bell icon to get up a part of this class. And whenever any video is produced, you are going to get notified. You are free to share my video on any social media platform. Like this video just to encourage me. Invite your friends and colleagues to join this class. If you have any question, send it to the comment section. It will be attended to. And let me also remind you that all the text and the poems in the WAEC 2026 to 2030 syllabus are already reviewed on this platform. Just make your request for any and the link will be sent to you. Thank you. Let's meet in the next class.